RotoGrinders Today. I'm Jordan Cooper, a.k.a. BlenderHD. You're going to follow me on Twitter. It's Wednesday, September 4th. We'll be taking a first look at the Week 1 NFL DFS main slate for DraftKings and FanDuel. NFL is finally back, and it's gonna basically take over this show. Right? Today we're gonna have a first look. Tomorrow we'll be talking just props and pick'em. And then Friday, GPP strategy for the DraftKings slate on Sunday. Obviously, we still got baseball, so Grinders Live later tonight, 5 p.m. Eastern for the MLB slate. That's followed by Crunch Time. But joining me in for the first week of the NFL season, regular season at least, is Alex Sonty. And we're getting September, October, November. We're getting into... We got a lot of sports going on. We're going to get hockey back, basketball, college football's already running. It's going to be quite busy here at RG Land.
It is very busy in RG Land, which means it's very busy for us on the homeland. And I'm excited for football. You know, football snuck up on me this year more so than it usually does. I don't know why, but yeah, I'm excited for football to start up and just get into a weekly grind.
Well, let's get started with the Week 1 slate. This is the first look. We're going to look, you know, it's what I know some of these salaries have been out for a while, but I mean, for the most part on Wednesdays, we're just going to take a look at what the games look like, what position by position, what the salaries look like, more so from maybe a cash or a chalky type of perspective. You know, what are the best projected plays, point per dollar wise, you know, any type of high variance situations, injuries we should be taking a look at. You know, and you know, we don't know what's going on with Jamar Chase, right, this coming Sunday. But we got 12 games, and a lot of them we have a lot of fairly healthy implied team totals, right? The two highest total games are the Jaguars-Dolphins and the Texans-Colts game. They're 49.5. The Cardinals-Bills game has a fairly healthy total. We have no totals that are really low, like, you know, like 36 totals or anything like that. And when we start off and we look at quarterback, Josh Allen, 8K, most expensive quarterback on the slate. The Bills have a high implied team total. He is the highest in our RG projections. He is the highest raw points quarterback from a mean perspective. I'm not sure where the ball's going in Buffalo. I mean, I don't know how it's going to shake out with Shakir and Kincaid and Coleman and, I don't know, James Cook out of the backfield. He's probably the best play from raw point perspective, but are we really looking to spend up on quarterback this week? Because it feels like there's a bunch of people between like 5,500 and 6,500 that I'd almost rather save the money and play instead.
Well, in cash, I mean, I don't think we need to spend a lot of money on quarterback very often this season. There's always some value, especially on DraftKings, in that, like you said, the $5,500 to $6,500 range. The first name that pops out to me is Anthony Richardson in that Texans-Colts game. He's got the legs, he's got the dome, he's got the high total. It should be a fast-paced game. The blitz is looking at Daniel Jones, point per dollar, pretty highly. I don't think I would go there in cash. Jaden Daniels is a guy who's popping off in our projections and in the blitz for 5,700 on DraftKings. Caleb Williams is kind of right behind him at 5,900 with some more weapons. So to go to Josh Allen, this is the Josh Allen point here. We don't need to spend 8K on Josh Allen.
The thing is obviously first week of the season, Anthony Richardson barely played last year because he got injured. But we saw what he could do, right? Obviously, when we're looking in cash games especially, or, you know, high floor players, rushing yards matter a lot for quarterbacks. I mean, that's one of the reasons why, you know, Josh Allen comes preloaded with some rushing yards, even though he's not as much of a scrambler as he used to be. But like Lamar Jackson, those types of players. And we mentioned Daniel Jones, Kyler Murray, right? We have a lot more mobile quarterbacks in the NFL now than there used to be. But then we also have guys like Baker Mayfield, Geno Smith. And Geno Smith can maybe have some rush. I mean, you can always take a look at the rushing prop and go, like, okay, 9 yards, 7
No,
yards. I mean,
no, Geno Smith
not,
isn't.
right. That's not built in. But like Jaden Daniels has a rushing prop of like 38.
Yeah,
Richardson is like 42, but
yeah,
Jaden Daniels it's going to be his first ever NFL start on the road to Tampa Bay. And then you also have Caleb Williams, who maybe not as mobile. I mean, his rushing prop is like 16, right? But the Bears have a healthy implied team total against the Titans defense. But he's also someone no NFL. These are quarterbacks with no NFL snaps.
no.
It's inevitable that one of these guys or both of these guys, Williams and Daniels, may end up being a $7,500 quarterback. Right? They may end up being, or we could look back and go, and 8 weeks from now go, yeah, I'm not even going to play them at 5K. Like it could be one of those two things.
Oh, yeah.
On the first week of the season, I love that. My favorite week, Alex, is week 2, right? But week one is close. Week 1, we don't know anything. People think they know. They've been drafting best ball for 8 months. They think they know. They saw the NFL draft. They think they know. They saw preseason. They think they know. We don't know anything. Whatever is a good defense last year may not be a good defense this year. Whatever was a bad defense last year could be a good defense. So many people have changed teams. I mean, we got coaching changes across the board. Once we go to the running back position, it's like I'm going to turn on the red zone and see people in teams that I'm like I feel like
I have no idea who some of these guys. I just discovered today some of these guys have changed teams. I'm like, what the?
Right, what's going on exactly?
Yeah, what's going on? There's a huge running back carousel that went on.
From an overall perspective, I know we're not necessarily talking GPPs because this is more of a GPP type of mindset. That week 1, I'm more inclined to not buy into the group think certainty. So, for instance, like if you give me a choice between like all these quarterbacks up here, like we mentioned, like Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, I'll take Anthony Richardson at 6,300 for a little bit more because I know what I'm getting more or less with Anthony Richardson, and the Colts have a healthy implied team total, right? Jaden Daniels, they're the underdogs in that game, right? And then you take a look at Geno Smith and Baker Mayfield, and you go, well, at least I know what I'm getting there. I know what I'm getting with Baker Mayfield and Geno Smith, and they're about the same price. I think the ceiling on those two don't match the ceiling of Williams and Daniels, but it's quite possible that Williams and Daniels come out and throw 4 interceptions during their first NFL game. I mean, I think while the projections would say that the means are similar, I think the range of outcomes is much wider on those players. So I wouldn't be as confident. We show their ownership on Williams and Daniels to be like the 2 highest owned quarterbacks on the slate. And maybe it turns out they're both $7,500 quarterbacks by the end of the season. That could happen. But my mindset is if I could find a way to get to Richardson, like when I play DraftKings, like right now I have Richardson at quarterback. I almost feel better spending the extra, 600 from Daniels to Richardson to just be like, okay, I got a guy that's probably rushing. I'm probably getting 4 points rushing, right? I'm probably getting possibly getting a rushing touchdown also.
You get 10 points from him just on the ground.
Right. I just feel so much more comfortable that he's played in the NFL. We know how he plays. He comes preloaded with rushing yards. It's a high total game against the Texans, right? Give it to me. Even if he throws 2 interceptions, I think I could get 18 to 22 points, and much more easily than taking shots on rookie quarterbacks that who knows what it's going to be.
And there's also more to get from him than the decent kind of, we call it high floor, whatever, but the lower ceiling, no leg quarterbacks like Geno Smith and Baker Mayfield, where, sure, we can get 250 yards and 2 touchdowns. But is that going to be enough without the rushing yards? Maybe they only get us a point on the ground. Anthony Richardson, who we can say can get us 4 to 10 to 12 points just on the ground, and has a high total and has a high pace game. That's why he's the first name that I rattled off. And if I'm gonna Geno Smith is an interesting case for me. I don't follow the coaching carousel very often, but the guy that they hired to be the offensive coordinator in Seattle apparently turned the University of Washington into a passing juggernaut. Geno Smith has been pretty efficient the last couple of years. If his volume goes up and his efficiency doesn't suffer for it, he could be a guy who we're talking about as a $6K, $6,500 quarterback as the season goes on. And I'm not impressed by the Broncos. What's the spread in this game for Seattle and Denver? It's a 6-point spread, and Seattle's got a healthy 24-point total. You need the 3 touchdown passes from Geno Smith, though. You need the 3 touchdown passes from Baker Mayfield. You might need 3 touchdown passes from Caleb Williams, because they're going to be points all over the slate. I think half of this, there might be eight legitimately playable quarterbacks on this slate.
So what other ones? What other? My cash, most likely in my cash lineup, I will be playing like Richardson by far, then possibly Williams or Daniels. I know the Blitz likes Daniel Jones, but I prefer to play quarterbacks that are on favored teams. I'm not a big fan of this Vikings Giants game in general.
Oh God, no. Yeah.
I almost feel like even like Trevor Lawrence against Miami.
Trevor Lawrence is a good value.
Right. I also don't think I don't think Joe Burrow against New England at 6,500 is like, if you just want. Cincinnati is a touchdown favorite. I don't go by the narrative. Oh, they're going to be up by 28 points, which means he's going to be not even going to be playing the fourth quarter. Well, if that's the case, Burrow probably has 30 fantasy points. So what do I care? Right.
If the Bengals score 35 points and Waffle crush him 35-6, he probably has 4 touchdown passes, and we're more than fine.
Right, but we're not. But in cash games, I don't feel. I put together some lineups. Like, I'm not paying for Allen. I'm not paying for C.J. Stroud. I don't feel like you have to pay up at quarterback at all. The highest I'll go is Burrow at 6,500, and even then, like, I may want the extra 200 for something or the extra 700 for something. It really depends on what you're doing in the other positions. It really depends a lot on if you're going to spend up for one wide receiver, which is probably what I'm going to be doing. So that's why, like, Richardson is like right at the level where, like, okay, I got to pay down a bit of defense and at one wide receiver spot or a running back spot, and I could get Richardson. I like my lineup. The other spot's better with like Daniels, but I could get away with Richardson and be perfectly fine.
Yeah, and this is where we get into lineup construction and the dynamic of week 1 of not knowing anything. We don't know which $5,500 wide receiver is going to get 8 targets. We have no clue which $5,500 wide receiver is going to get.
People think they do. Alex,
no, we have no idea.
Right. But if you're going to take anything out of this show this week, right? Because I'm going to say it on Friday with Squirrel also. Like, you're going to go on Twitter and people are going to act like they know. This coach runs a lot of the cover 2, this type of thing, and they're going to do whatever. Like, it's like, dude, half these teams have like completely different coaching staffs and completely different rosters, new players. Like, whatever he did at that other team, he's going to do it this. Like, you have no idea, right? So I'm more likely to just go with either what I know, or just go away from the, like, this guy's this running back's definitely getting 80% of the snaps. So I'm going to play him at 28% ownership. It's like, yeah, hell no, I'm not. Right? I'm going to go with the 5% owned guy that people go, it's only a timeshare. Don't worry about it. Like that type of. You don't know. You have no idea.
Whereas we do know that Tua Tagovailoa is going to look for Tyreek Hill a lot.
Yes.
We do know that Dak Prescott is going to look for CeeDee Lamb a lot. We do know that if Jamar Chase rolls off the couch and plays in that game and he's got his shower buddy throwing footballs, he's going to get the ball a lot. But then, and we'll get into it with wide receiver, but wide receiver is important because a lot of money goes toward wide receiver. So a lot of money gets allocated to wide receiver. I think especially in week one when we don't know and we want to go for things that we do know. If we're going to spend money on a known, I think we do it at wide receiver instead of quarterback.
I agree with you. Let's get to running back. And I think for cash game perspectives or chalky lineup perspectives, I think we got I think 5 viable options. 5. One, I'm not. There are multiple that I'm not comfortable with. Okay.
Okay.
So my natural inclination. Okay. My natural inclination, and if I'm playing 2 running backs, most likely I'm playing 3 in my cash lineup on DraftKings. But you don't have to play 3. Running back there's not many bell cows anymore that 3 running back builds in cash games are not like you have to. I don't mind playing 4 wide receiver lineups. A lot of people are going to want to play Bijan Robinson at 7,700. I'm not sure how you make that build where you also have Tyreek in your lineup and you're not punting in too many spots. Obviously without Arthur Smith there, I'm much higher on the Falcons this year, but I think everyone thinks that. Everyone's into Drake London, Kyle Pitts, and Bijan Robinson. And it may turn out that Bijan Robinson ends up being a 9K running back because he just gets the ball. Tyler Algier is only right. Tyler Algier is only there for change of pace, running up the middle type of stuff, and he gets 8 carries or something. I don't know. If this was last year, I wouldn't even possibly think of playing Bijan Robinson in cash games at 7,700. And I think I could say the same for Devon A-Chain. People were high on him last year, obviously. I mean, he's splitting the carries. I know Miami's a favorite, but I mean, how do I play a $6,800 running back that is in a timeshare? He has a rushing prop of like 53.5. What, Alex? Just to do my whole spiel.
Mm-hmm.
I prefer Rachaad White at 6,300 and Kenny Walker at 6,100 because Rachaad White, not sexy, right? Tampa Bay are favorites in this game, right? 23.25, and we know what we do. I mean, essentially, Rachaad White's going to get 20 carries and 5 targets. What he does with it is questionable, but I mean, he's going to get it. And Walker, I mean, he's getting 20 carries also. Seattle is a big favorite a big enough favorite against the Broncos.
Yeah.
Walker has just shot at 2 or 3 touchdowns. He's going to get the goal line work. I mean, like why am I I know the ceiling on A-Chain and Robinson are way higher, right? But they're also way more
ceiling
expensive.
that high on A-Chain though? Because I mean, what did he have? I'm trying to look up what he did. I mean, 7.8 yards per carry. Come on. I mean, the guy, is he going to touch the ball more than 12 times? I mean, can you really say that a guy who's going to touch the ball 12 times has a higher ceiling than Kenneth Walker, who's on a team that's going to, implied to score 24, who's a home favorite? And I think your Rachaad White call is totally spot on. Another home favorite. And, again, we don't have the bell cows, quad bell cow, as we used to call it, but these guys are closer to it than A-Chain, who could get vultured, who could only get in for. We don't know how this is a known unknown, the Dolphins' backfield, and in cash we don't have to spend money on known unknowns at running back.
Well, the counterpoint would be, remember Alvin Kamara with on the Saints touches the ball 13, 14 times, or
sure.
But I don't think I mean, if we take a look at just the betting lines, like his receiving prop is 22.5. So like it's not any touchdown, his touchdown scoring prop is plus 115. We're not talking Kamara would have receiving props of 48. and touchdown props of plus 175. Like we're not talking about, that type of situation.
And he was catching like 6 balls. He was scoring a touchdown just with his receptions.
Right.
He was giving us touchdown points just from receptions.
Right.
Alvin Kamara could score 25 points without scoring a touchdown.
Right. I mean, I look at this and I go like, I'd rather, out of all these running backs, out of all the running backs that are available, my priority on this slate, I think in my entire lineup, is Tyreek Hill at wide receiver.
That's mine too.
Right. So once you plug that in,
quarterback. That's
right.
why we were talking quarterback. It was like, let's point out the 500-pound gorilla in the room that Tyreek Hill is kind of the guy that we want in the cash game lineup.
Right. But that means that really prices me out of Bijan Robinson and even probably prices me out of Devon Achane. And I just think there's so much variance in their outcomes for their prices. Like another guy, even a little bit less than that we could end up being an 8K running back is Aaron Jones. You take a look at it, not as sexy as Achane or Robinson, but I mean, Aaron Jones playing for the Vikings.
Aaron Jones should get the ball a lot.
Right. He should, as long as he's not injured. He should. See, the thing is, we go down the list, and we see all these running backs and everything, and you go, well, do you play? How about Spears and Chase Brown and Devin Singletary on the Giants and Zamir White against the Chargers and just like Tony Pollard on the? I mean, Joe Mixon on the Texans.
You're talking about underdogs and timeshares,
right? And guys that maybe were good when they were on the team that they previously played for, but it's now a completely different situation. My third running back. I said there were 5 viable ones that I think in cash. I think from a cheap perspective, maybe his ceiling is low. I feel perfectly fine playing Chuba Hubbard at 5,300 against the Saints because, the Carolina's only a 4-point underdog. So it's not like, it's not the lowest of low totals. I mean, it's not great. But Chuba Hubbard has a better rushing prop than Achane does, right? He has
because
a plus
Carolina
130 touchdown. He has almost as good of a touchdown prop as Achane. So I'm like, Chuba Hubbard isn't sexy, but as long as the game is close, Chuba Hubbard's going to probably get 25 touches. Which includes 4 or 5 targets, 20. When it comes to running backs in cash for chalky type of builds, all I want is if you give me 25 touches for 6K or under, plug them in. Just plug them in.
That's a no-brainer.
It's fine with me.
That's a no-brainer. I think 25 is ambitious, but in a 4-point game in New Orleans, in the Dome in New Orleans, if he can get 15 to 18 touches for 5,300, that's a great value. I don't know if I would go there in cash, but isn't let me not date myself here. Miles Sanders is still there to take away volume, but at 5,300, we can get the same volume as Achane for what, 1,500 less?
1,500 less, yeah. Are there any other running backs that you're looking at or considering in those type of builds? I had Jonathan Taylor kind of shows up at 7,800.
Yeah, and I want to be interested in James Cook, but it's so expensive because that game as a whole, that Arizona Buffalo game is kind of a weird game to handicap for fantasy because Buffalo's a pretty big favorite. It's going to be a high scoring game. We didn't talk about Kyler Murray very much, but Kyler Murray's going to have to throw a lot. Buffalo's going to have to hold on to the ball. They should be able to run out the clock in the fourth quarter. And it's how does Buffalo score all those points? Is it going to be through Josh Allen throwing to rookies and Dalton Kincaid? There's a rhetorical argument for spending up a little bit to James Cook, but you got to find somewhere else to save at running back. And I think if I'm going to save money somewhere in the 5K range, you probably have to do it with running back. Because if you're playing Anthony Richardson and Tyreek Hill, you only leave yourself about, and play a cheap defense, you're leaving yourself in the range of like $5,800 to spend.
Right. Before we had a question from R. Fletch. Would you build with Minshew or Carr to be different and crazy? Well, I mean, we're talking like cash games, chalky build types. Minshew and Carr would be different and crazy, but that would be more for our Friday show with Squirrel about GPPs. I would not be playing Minshew or Carr in cash games.
I would not. I mean, if you want it different and crazy, I mean, we'll just have a quick note on this, is spending up to Josh Allen with one of those rookie receivers and running it back with like, I don't know, Michael Wilson or Trey McBride. So you spend the money on quarterback to be contrarian and you save the money with the correlation.
But that's more for GPPs.
That's a different level of thinking.
Wednesday's first look, we want to get you up to speed with the slate in general. Like, what are the better projected players? What are the chalkier players? And then you decide what your lineup. I mean, if you're playing double ups, you're going to be playing all of the chalkiest, best projected players together. In GPPs, you're going to only be playing some of them, right? You may be playing 2 or 3 of them, but it's your choice on which directions. I'll play these chalky guys, but not these chalky guys, and that's up to you for lineup construction. But to a lot of people, especially if you don't have a RotoGrinder subscription, you don't get the projections. You don't get ownership. You don't get all of our content. We have first look content. We have so much. Like, I could just go here. Let's put the content schedule up, right? Here's the content. Look, I'm scrolling. This is all the stuff we do for NFL, right? Some of the stuff isn't up now. Some of the stuff is premium with this little icon, right? So we get all these articles. Noto's key personnel. Hitting the nuts with Squirrel Patrol. You also get Thursday night football, Friday night football this week, Sunday night, Monday night football. Then we have the expert surveys. We got the single game sim tools for DraftKings and FanDuel, Weather Edge, the consensus value rankings, the optimal stacks tool. Then we all the videos, all the videos with we got tournament videos, the Blitz video show. We got the props, pick 'em and props tool. We got underdog stuff, and I mean we got all this stuff. Sim Labs, right? Lineup HQ to build all your lineups. You got all the DFS and stat level projections that you could even download via CSV and use whatever way the hell you want, right? We got all of this. So if you want to join, click on that link in the description. We got a special NFL package if you just want NFL, but I always suggest the combo premium package and get $40 off your first month. So join us. So that's what we're going over, for the cheapo people that don't sign up for RotoGrinders and get all this stuff, to go, okay, here's kind of like, if you're going to throw together a lineup, like here's kind of like the top projected type of people as of now, and then you could kind of decide between them. Like I know I talk bad about Achane and Robinson, but they are 2 of the better projected running backs.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with it. But if you're going to play Achane and Robinson and Josh Allen, you ain't playing Tyreek Hill. You don't have the salary for that, right? So like you have to make those decisions yourself. But at least we're pointing out here are the consensus value types of plays, and then you could now go into the slate on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and go, okay, now let me play around with some lineups. So let's get to wide receiver, Alex.
Let me get one more quick running back point. If we're going to go for a lower volume running back on FanDuel specifically, there's a lot of value at wide receiver. Alvin Kamara is 7,100, and he's a home favorite. He could probably get the same volume as Achane and score you with maybe a higher floor. The ceiling isn't as high, but there's a guy who has some like kind of buried in there week 1 potential value. Anyway, we can move on to wide receiver.
Okay, wide receiver. Can you give me a reason not to play Tyreek Hill at 8,700 when he has a nearly 100-yard rushing prop and anytime touchdown of minus 125 for a wide receiver and a 7.5 reception prop?
Nope, I can't, because the guy's going to get the ball 10 times. and this is it's week 1. We have known knowns. We have very, very few known knowns. We have a lot of known unknowns. We have a lot of unknown knowns. But one of those known knowns is that Tyreek Hill is going to get the ball a lot. Tyreek Hill is a great talent in terms of catching the football. Tyreek Hill gets yards after the catch. Tua Tagovailoa looks for him a lot all over the field. They try to get him in the end zone a lot. This is not a team that's just, moving the chains with them. This isn't Marcus Colston here. This isn't Michael Thomas here. This is a guy who they're trying to get him in the end zone almost every single time they look his way. So I don't see a reason to not play Tyreek Hill in cash.
Okay, so if you're going to play Tyreek Hill and you're going to be playing some like 6K running backs, most likely your other receivers, you're going to need a cheaper receiver, probably in the 4K range, and then another receiver in like the mid 5 to almost 6K type of range.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, there are other builds. If you want to play like Achan instead of that middle receiver, now you need 2 cheaper receivers. So let's look in like the mid range, because I mean, we don't have to talk about like, yes, obviously, the CeeDee Lamb or Justin Jefferson. That we're talking about like those are GPPs. We'll be talking about that on Friday, right? Obviously, they're great.
Yeah.
Right? But they don't project as well as Tyreek Hill. If you're going to be playing a high-priced wide receiver, you're playing Tyreek Hill. It's just like end of story.
Yes.
It's not like we're not mentioning other great people. It's that leave them for GPPs. They'll be much lower owned than Tyreek Hill.
We should note with Justin Jefferson, and I played cash games professionally for a very long time, NFL cash games. I don't like spending a lot of money for a wide receiver who doesn't have a good quarterback. If the projections tell me to do it because the value is so great, then I'll do it. But when we have Tyreek Hill and we have CeeDee Lamb, there's no reason to spend up to Justin Jefferson.
Okay. I'm going to tell you someone that's going to be popular at wide receiver that falls in the same category as what I talked about with Caleb Williams and with Jaden Daniels. Malik Neighbors, 5,900. His props look decent, right? 5.5 receptions, 58.5 rushing yards, plus 150 touchdown prop. He sets up to probably be the Giants' #1 receiver with Daniel Jones. I'm not a big fan of that game. What?
I don't know what Giants' #1 receiver means, but yes, you are correct on that.
Right, but you understand what I'm saying. I'm not a big fan of that game environment, but he falls into the same thing of where's the sample size? Malik Neighbors may end up being a $7,500 wide receiver. He also may end up being a 4K wide receiver that we don't even bother playing ever. Right? We don't play any Giants receiver. Right? I mean, he ends up becoming Shannon. Right. Or not even him. I don't mind playing Wan'Dale Robinson. He ends up being like Shepard or Slayton or Kenny Galladay or some, just such random guys for a Daniel Jones-led offense. I think he's going to be chalky in cash games, but can you tell me, like, going back to my attitude of, we don't know what we don't know. People think they know or whatever. If I just take a look at the props, like what the betting lines, like Malik Neighbors' props are not that much different than Chris Godwin at 5,800, Drake London at 6,000. Right? I mean, even if you want to say DK Metcalf at 6,200, T. Higgins at 6,100, especially if Chase doesn't play. Right? In this, even if you want to spend up a little and play Jalen Waddle, even though you have Tyreek Hill in your lineup at 6,300, that's still fine for cash. Terry McLaurin, maybe not so much, but I mean, Malik Neighbors is on an underdog team with a sub 20 implied total. And he doesn't, he projects about as good as people that I know what I'm getting when I know what I'm getting when I'm getting Chris Godwin. I'm more likely to take a shot in Drake London. Like Drake London may end up being an 8K wide receiver. So like if you want to make the case that, well, Malik Neighbors may end up being a star. It's like, well, without Arthur Smith, Drake London may end up being someone that if we saw him at 6K would be like, well, how is he not in every one of our lineups? So like, I still lean towards. I know Neighbors is probably going to be chalky, but I'm perfectly fine playing those other guys instead.
So with Drake London, there's a known unknown there of how much he's going to get the ball. What we do know about Kirk Cousins is he will lean into one guy. What we don't know about the Falcons offense is which guy he's going to lean into. So that's the argument against Drake London. I think he's a fine cash play because he can get himself open. Chris Godwin is probably the cash play under 6K. I'm glad you brought him up first because he is kind of a number one guy who's underpriced. They should score some points. He's got a good chance to get into the end zone. And he's a guy who can score 20 points without scoring a touchdown because he can get some volume. A guy you didn't bring up was Christian Kirk. We glossed over Trevor Lawrence in quarterbacks as a guy who we can take on the other side of that high-scoring game. Who might be a safer bet for those 2 or 3 touchdown passes that we need, a shot at 250 yards, 250, 300 yards. Christian Kirk should be a big benefactor of the high-scoring nature of that game.
But out of all these people, if Jamar Chase does not play, would Higgins just go to the top of the list at 6,100?
Yes. After Tyreek Hill, he's probably the guy I'm plugging in second.
Like, I'd rather play at that point. I think I'd rather play T. Higgins than Kenny Walker at 61. Like, I'm not going to play the $6,100 running back when T. Higgins probably ends up with a 75-yard, receiving prop, probably plus 110 anytime. I mean, like, Cincinnati's a big favorite in that game, and once Chase is gone in that offense, I mean, who else are they throwing the ball to?
Well, and Joe Burrow, again, a known that we know about Joe Burrow is he likes to feed one guy. And it's not just a Jamar Chase thing. We've seen it before where he will feed one guy. And I don't know too much about, I don't dig deep into the depth charts. I don't know who else Cincinnati has. As far as I know, I think they've just got like some inexperienced guys behind T. Higgins. If I'm wrong, feel free to correct me. But I think the ball is going to gravitate toward T. Higgins if there's no Jamar Chase. Okay,
for cheap wide receiver, I think.
How cheap are we talking? Like under 5,500?
Yeah, under 5K or under, right?
5K or under, okay.
5K or under 5K, 4,900 lower. I think some people are going to play Roma Dunze, if I'm pronouncing that right. Good luck to you on that adventure that I'm not taking. A third wide receiver, rookie wide receiver to a rookie quarterback at 4K. Good luck to you, dear. Whatever.
I mean, he's behind Keenan Allen and DJ Moore on the depth chart.
Right. I know the Bears have a healthy implied total, but I mean, you know who I'd rather play for a little bit more? The second wide receiver on a team that is a healthy favorite, and that's Jackson Smith and Jigba for 4,900 with no Tyler Lockett. Just I'll spend the extra 900. I'll find a way to not have to go further down. We talk the known unknowns, right? The type of I know what I'm getting, right? I mean, and if you take a look at even the prop wise, like JSN has a 44.5 receiving prop, which is, I mean, you're paying a little more than Roma Dunze's 41.5. A better touch, I mean, better anytime touchdown scoring prop. I mean, and other people in that range, we're talking about a lot of like Khalil Shakir's at 51, Brian Thomas at 4,700, a lot of rookies, a lot of, Lad McConkey at 4,700. I mean, I think it's quite possible the cheapest if you want to go dirt cheap, if Chase is out.
One guy's dirt. I was just we're thinking the same guy.
Andre Iasivis, right? Yeah. But that's an if Chase is out type of thing. Like, I wouldn't mind in cash playing Higgins and Iasivis in my lineup together.
That's totally fine because Cincinnati doesn't have. I mean, I think Zach Moss is at the top of their depth chart for running back, but this isn't Joe Mixon where they're going to feed one guy 35 times. This is a situation where Joe Burrow is going to be throwing to build up that blowout, and their best shot to get in the end zone will probably be through the air, and they're going to get in the end zone a lot. So loading up on that passing game for a total of 9K is totally reasonable.
But that's an if. This is all in brackets.
If Chase is out.
Right, if Chase doesn't play. Someone asked, isn't Boyd still in Cincy? No, he's with the Titans.
Right. He's with the Titans.
Like, yeah. Week one of the first thing, you have to realize that people aren't where you're not where you thought. I mean, totally that's what I have to do week one myself.
Yeah. And, I think I think JSN is the reasonable choice. I think also I brought up the Seattle change with offensive coordinator. I think it's going to mean something, just throwing more. That should help JSN. And we know a little more about what he is. I wish Keon Coleman was cheaper than 5K. But the ball's got to go somewhere in Buffalo, right? I mean, if so, Shakir and Coleman, they're not the ways that I would go in cash, but they are excusable if we're not playing Allen, which we're not. If we're not playing James Cook, which we're not, because he's like 6,900, right? Getting a piece of that Buffalo offense that's implied to score nearly 28 points isn't stupid. We don't want to spend
right, but we've seen Alex with Buffalo, and I'll talk about it on Friday with Squirrel, is that we've seen Buffalo go out and put up 38 points in the stack. Yeah, Josh Allen has 40 points, and then nothing comes, right? Except once in a while, Gabe Davis goes off for 25 fantasy points. A lot of times the Bills score a bunch of points, and it's Josh Allen rushing the ball in twice and then spreading the ball out for 3 other touchdowns, and like the stack doesn't, like, none of the other players really get there.
But the thing with Shakir, and again, I'm probably not playing Shakir or Coleman in cash, but the argument for them is they could score, they could get 4 catches for 45 yards and a touchdown for 5K, and that'll be enough. We don't need the 2 touchdowns like we needed with Stephon Diggs. We don't need the 10 catches like we used to need out of that salary. So there's just a different way of approaching Buffalo's wide receivers this season than we have in the past years of Josh Allen.
Let's talk about tight end. Okay. I think if you're spending up at tight end, I think you're just playing Evan Ingram at 5,500. I'm not sure how I get there, right? If you're playing Tyreek Hill, I mean, essentially you'd be playing Evan Ingram instead of like Malik Neighbors or Godwin or Higgins or whatever in that range. And you're playing like a second, like 4K level. What you're playing Odunze and JSN together. And I don't think that is the best option. I think if I have the money, obviously if I can't get to Ingram, I can't get to Ingram. If I have the money, I'd like to get the Kyle Pitts at 4,600. But if that's not the case, like, I don't mind going and doing some pseudo dumpster diving.
Johnny Smith is super cheap, isn't he?
Yeah. But I mean, I think you could say the same for a lot of tight ends. I mean, seriously, I don't mind going down and just like Kylen Gransoning it up, or Theo Johnsoning it up, right? I'm not sure. In my dummy lineup, I have Kyle Pitts in my dummy lineup. I don't need to go all the way down there, but I don't mind necessarily on this slate. My priority to me is Tyreek Hill, and I don't need Bijan, and I truthfully, I don't even need Richardson, right? I don't mind playing a cheaper quarterback, but I don't feel the need that if the types of lineups that have Evan Ingram or Trey McBride or Dalton Kincaid in their lineup are the types of lineups that probably don't have Tyreek Hill in their lineup.
And I don't want that lineup.
Right, and I don't want that. Right, you're competing against those lineups. Tyreek Hill goes out and puts out 28 to 35 points. It doesn't matter that your opponent's tight end scored 18 and your tight end scored 4. It's like you made it up with Tyreek Hill. It doesn't matter at that point, right?
When we talk GPPs, it's going to be interesting to stack up one of those cheap Bills wide receivers with Trey McBride and Kyler Murray, but that's a GPP conversation. To spend up a tight end to be a little contrarian, because it's going to make your whole lineup a bit contrarian when you spend 6,100 on a tight end. For cash, we want to look for value. I think Kyle Pitts is a good value. He's cheaper than London, and we're paying for the same gamble of which guy is Kirk Cousins going to feed a lot. There's going to be one of those 2 guys. One of those 2 guys is going to really blast off for 8 to 10 targets a game. We don't know which one it is. Kyle Pitts is a cheaper option of that, and he lines up on the outside. I mean, he's kind of like a wide receiver in himself, the way he plays, the way they use him. So Lapel Pit's a fine call. I think what's going on? We didn't talk about the Chargers at all. I mean, Hayden Hurst is a guy who we've seen, get open in the end zone. The Chargers have a low total, but is it going to be the Josh Palmer show? I mean, someone's got to get the ball there. They're going to score. They're going to score a couple touchdowns, and someone's got to get the ball. Hayden Hurst, is he under 3K? He's at 3K.
Yeah, he's 3K. I put him in that category of feel free 3K or below.
If I'm going to punt,
if I'm going to punt
tight end, that's probably where
whatever
I go.
You feel like.
Yeah,
right.
If I'm going to punt tight end, it's probably Hayden Hurst. He's got a decent projection for. I think he has the best value under 4K. He is the best value under 4K according to the Blitz.
Okay, let's talk about defense, DST. According
no
to
idea what
RG projections, the Texans at 2,700 have a little. There's not across the board. The pricing on DSTs, according to the RG projections, are not that far off. I mean, the difference between a lot of them is marginal from a point per dollar perspective, right? You're probably not paying up in cash games. I think if I were to pay up, I would want to play like the Bills or the Browns. Like $3,100 Browns, 3K Bills. That's if, right? Or like the Seahawks at 3,400. I don't think I get all the way up there. But I think I'm much more likely, like to me right now in my dummy lineup, I got the Panthers defense at 2,400.
That's a great call because they're going to run a lot of plays. It's New Orleans Dome. Derek Carr throws to the wrong team a lot. We've got a lot of rookie quarterbacks starting. Rookie quarterbacks throw to the wrong team no matter how good they are. So, the Bucks, the Titans. He's not a rookie, but Anthony Richardson is still, we consider him a novice quarterback. I don't think taking the Texans against him is terrible just because a lot of plays are going to get run. Like mistakes are going to get made. Balls are going to get fumbled. Balls are going to get thrown to the wrong team. And, Derek Carr's got a long history of throwing to the wrong team. Rookies always throw to the wrong team. Didn't Peyton Manning have like 28 interceptions his first season? So I like targeting rookie quarterbacks, fast games with DST. And I just don't want to spend money on DST, really. That's really what it comes down to. I don't want to spend a lot.
I also don't mind if you don't like the Panthers. The Cardinals at 2,400 is fine also. I don't think they have a good defense at all, but Josh Allen has a lot of dropbacks and runs and throws. I mean, Josh Allen is prone to making one or two mistakes a game as it is and still winning. So
Josh Allen could drop back. Josh Allen doesn't have the greatest weapons in the world, and he could drop back 55 times in this game.
But it's one of these weeks, Alex. It's kind of odd because most of the time we're going to get on these Wednesday shows, and there's going to be a defense that's like 2,200 that's going to be like 38% owned. And the conversation on Friday with Squirrel is going to be, do you eat the 38% owned defense? I don't think there is that. I mean, I truthfully think for GPPs, I think defense is there's just play whoever you want. The defense, there's not going to be like a defense that's 20% owned at all. I don't think any defense is going to be specifically owned that much. We may have positional players that are like that. I think the highest owned player on the slate is going to be Tyreek Hill. I think he ends up being 30% owned. And I'm not sure if there's going to be any other guy that maybe even cracks 20 on this slate, which is kind of odd for week 1 NFL on DraftKings when the salaries come out like 6 weeks in advance. Because if you want to play Marvin Harrison Jr., he's 7,200 because they proactively price the rookies in a way where, if they end up being great, you can't really take advantage of it. And all the backup running backs, the timeshare running backs, they didn't leave it like 4K or something. They just they actually priced them as if, one of them was going to get a lot of work. And now it's kind of rare that I go on the RGV value in lineup HQ for all players. And the top one is 3. Week 1, a lot of times the top one will be 12 and then have an 8 and then it's 6. And he'd be like, can you build a lineup without any of these 3 players? And you go, no, because you're gonna drop 15 points in projection by doing so.
Yeah.
So is there anything else of note as far as like cash / chalky type of builds for the week 1 slate on Sunday for DraftKings?
I do think Tyreek Hill's ownership is going to. I don't think 30% is what we're looking at, and maybe single entry we could look at it more 30%. But just because of the price, and when people start looking, sometimes people get sticker shock and they're like, "Oh, but I can get Justin Jefferson for this price, and I want to jam in Jonathan Taylor." Like the field is also going to jam in Jonathan Taylor a little bit. The field is going to jam in Bijan Robinson, and as we've talked about in the show, it's really hard to build Hill with those guys, and that could just spread things out a little bit. So I think in GPPs, like things like the Millie Maker, these enormous GPPs, I could see Tyreek Hill slipping more around like 18 to 22%.
Right. And typically in NFL DFS for GPPs, we'll talk about it on Friday with Squirrel, is that these contests are way larger. So like you'll actually end up getting more leverage on better plays in higher stakes, smaller field contests than you wouldn't in like the mini max. So like if Tyreek Hill, let's say for instance, I know this is like a preview for Friday's show. Tyreek Hill may be like 38% owned in the $100+ 1,000 entry or like the spy.
Like in the spy.
Right.
Yeah, in the
spy.
Spy.
The spy maybe 38% owned in the spy, but may be up 21% owned in the Millie Maker. And
I think
if you're playing
that's what I'm saying.
Right. If you're playing the mini max or something, a lot of times in the large field contests, simply going overweight on the best projected plays is the best way to go because there's so many bad lineups in the field that they don't play them enough. And then the opposite is true in the spy. In the spy, I don't mind building a spy lineup without Tyreek Hill, right?
Yeah.
I can make up his projection just in leverage. But if Tyreek Hill is only going to be, if you told me Tyreek Hill is going to be 21% owned in the mini max or the Millie Maker, I'd be playing him in almost all of my lineups. He should be higher owned than that, and he's not. So you're not getting any negative disc. Like, no, I'm just going to play the highest projected lineups. Give him.
And I assume you're going to talk about this with Squirrel, but single entry, the ownership at the top gets inflated, ownership at the bottom gets deflated, and those middle class players either get a little bump up or they take huge dips down. So, if you don't want to play Tyreek Hill at 38%, well, that extra 16, 17% is going to come from somewhere. So it's probably going to come from guys in the same price range, which then would put CeeDee Lamb into the conversation, which then puts Jamar Chase into the conversation, which then puts even Justin Jefferson into the conversation for tournaments. Because he's gonna rip that ownership away from those guys specifically, and we know that.
Alex, do you got some prize picks and stuff coming up this week?
I'm doing a lot of prize pick stuff every night slate. Those Thursdays, Sunday, and Mondays, I'll be doing prize picks articles as well as Tuesday to preview the week. Also, we have a RG seasonal fantasy league that needs 4 owners. It's $100. It's half point per reception. You can play against Beer Makers, me, Dean, Tim, Tasteful Tides, CVT PFL is in the league with a couple of users old from the RG forums. You can message me on Twitter if you want a spot. We've got 4 spots open. We're going to draft tonight at 8 o'clock Central Time. So message me on Twitter at Alex Sonty.
Okay, so your Twitter is at Alex Sonty. We got 4 spots. 4 spots. There. So Are Don Easy in chat. If you want in, just contact Alex or anyone on Twitter.
Yeah, contact me on Twitter.
By the end of the day. Obviously, we got all the NFL DFS stuff coming up. We got showdown stuff tomorrow. We got showdown stuff on Friday. Obviously, we got college football stuff on Saturday. We got so much stuff here. So join us. Sign up for a combo premium package. Click on that link in the description. Get $40 off your first month. Tomorrow, Will be on. We'll just be talking about props and pick'em. Okay. So if you're on Prize Picks, you're on Underdog, you're on Sleeper, you're on Fliff, you're on any of those types of sites, or if you're in a legal sports betting state like I am, and you're on DraftKings, FanDuel, Bet365, MGM, Caesars, all those sites, we'll We'll be just talking we'll be looking at the statistical projections. We'll be talking about props as they go up on the board, pass attempts, rush attempts, rushing yards, anything like that. Hopefully, if you're a subscriber here, you've gotten all that information early, which means by the time you listen tomorrow morning, maybe that over 54.5 rushing yards have turned into over 59.5 rushing yards, and all the value has been gone. So that's the benefit of signing up here at RotoGrinders. But we'll still take a look to see what value is still on the board tomorrow for the entirety of week 1. So tune in then, and it's going to be mostly NFL. Other than Tuesdays, from now until the end of the year, it's going to be NFL, NFL, NFL. That's all you guys want to talk about is NFL. People, it doesn't matter. Football comes, it just wipes out everything. So that's what I'll be talking about. Like I normally do here Monday through Friday, 11 o'clock Eastern. I talk about everything you're thinking about, which is mostly football now, and daily fantasy props and pick 'em on RotoGrinders Today.